All right, so today we're diving into some pretty unsettling news coming out of Russia.
Yeah?
Putin's saying he's got this new missile
Hmm.
and claims it's as strong as a nuclear weapon.
Oh, wow.
We've got two sources to try to get the full picture here.
Okay.
One is this HuffPost UK article. It gives us, the official news and
Wow.
political context. And then to balance that out, we've got this Reddit discussion on the same news.
Oh, interesting.
So we can see how regular people are reacting to this.
I like that combo because you get that top-down view from the article,
Yeah.
but then the Reddit thread gives you that ground level perspectives. Like,
Yeah.
how's this hitting people?
Exactly.
So this Oreshnik missile, that's what everyone's talking about.
Okay.
Putin's comparing its impact to a meteorite.
Uh-huh.
So is this just more of his, tough talk?
Right.
Or is there something more to be worried about?
Well, let's look at Putin's own words.
Okay.
He described the missile impact as being like a meteorite fallen.
And he even said, we know in history what meteorites have fallen where and what the consequences were. Sometimes it was enough for whole lakes to form.
Oh, wow.
He's going for a very specific image here.
It's dramatic, for sure. And the HuffPost article really emphasizes that he made a point of saying this missile is as powerful as a nuclear strike if used repeatedly on one area.
Oh,
So it's not just one hit, but multiple in the same spot.
right.
That's a lot to process.
Yeah, it is. But it's also where we need to be cautious.
Okay.
That meteorite comparison, it's powerful imagery.
Right.
But it's important to remember we're talking conventional weapons here,
Okay.
not nuclear.
Gotcha.
What Putin's likely talking about is creating a cumulative effect.
Okay.
A massive amount of destruction concentrated in a single area.
So like a larger scale bombing
Exactly.
instead of one massive nuclear explosion.
Precisely.
Okay.
But by using that meteorite analogy,
Yeah.
he taps into this primal fear of ours
Right.
about catastrophic events.
Wait.
It's effective propaganda,
Yeah.
designed to instill fear and uncertainty,
Oh, for sure.
but without actually using nuclear weapons.
So clever, but also unnerving.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this Oreshnik missile itself.
Okay.
What do we actually know about it?
Right.
Because our sources seem to have a slightly different take.
Yeah, that discrepancy is interesting. The HuffPost article mentions that Zelensky's team has downplayed the threat,
Okay.
calling it a modified ICBM,
Mm-hmm.
implying it's not as revolutionary as Putin's making it out to be.
Uh-huh.
And ICBM stands for Intercontinental Ballistic Missile, by the way.
Oh, okay.
It's a type of long-range missile
Right.
capable of reaching targets across continents.
Yeah.
They're suggesting it's not fundamentally different from technology that already exists.
Right. So then on the other hand, we've got the UK Ministry of Defense saying that this Oreshnik missile is likely scarce and expensive to produce. So that makes it sound like it could be something special, even if it's not based on brand new technology.
That's where the analysis gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Why would there be such a difference in how this weapon is being portrayed?
Right.
It could be strategic disinformation on both sides.
Okay.
Russia might be inflating the threat while Ukraine downplays it to prevent widespread panic.
Uh-huh.
Or, and this is a real possibility,
Yeah.
there could be genuine uncertainty about the missile's true capabilities.
So who actually knows?
Right.
So what could this missile actually be?
Okay.
Is it just a modified ICBM like Zelensky's team says, or is there more to it?
Well, if we look at Russia's known missile technology, it's possible this Oreshnik is a hypersonic glide vehicle.
Okay.
These are incredibly fast and maneuverable missiles that are very difficult to intercept
Oh, wow.
with current defense systems.
Wow.
They fit the description of being both expensive and scarce.
So even if it's not a new type of weapon,
Right.
it could still be a big step forward in capability.
Exactly. And that's why this threat, even if it's propaganda, needs to be taken seriously,
Oh.
especially when we consider the broader geopolitical context.
Okay.
The HuffPost article mentions Trump's recent election victory
Yeah.
and the possibility that U.S. support for Ukraine could shift.
Right. And we also know the UK and US have been supplying Kyiv with long-range missiles,
Right.
which has obviously made Putin mad.
Of course.
So maybe this threat is Putin's way of pushing back,
Could be.
trying to show he's still powerful
Right.
at a time when his position's actually getting weaker.
It's a classic power play,
Yeah.
especially given the internal pressures he's facing with Russia's economy.
Right.
This display of force could be as much for a domestic audience as it is for the West.
It's all starting to feel very interconnected, isn't it?
It is.
Like this one missile threat is a symptom of all these larger, more complex forces at play.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And to understand what this all means, we need to look at how people are reacting.
Right.
This Reddit discussion we have
Yeah.
is a goldmine of opinions and perspectives.
Yeah, let's dive into that Reddit thread and see what people are saying.
Okay.
Because I think it'll help us get a better grasp on what this all means.
All right.
Not just for world leaders, but for everyday people like you and me.
Yeah, like us. What's really striking in these Reddit comments is that, like, underlying tension
Yeah.
between, skepticism about Putin's claims and genuine concern about what he might do.
It's like people are rolling their eyes on the one hand, like, oh, Putin's at it again, trying to scare everyone.
Oh,
But
right.
then on the other, you can't deny that he's shown he's willing to do crazy things.
Yeah.
I mean, he invaded Ukraine.
Yeah, he did.
So people are right to be on edge.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the whole economic situation adds another layer to this.
Right.
A lot of the Reddit comments are talking about how Russia's economic problems might be influencing Putin's decisions.
Okay.
He's facing pressure from the sanctions and from his own people who are feeling the effects.
So could this meteorite missile threat be a way to regain some control?
Possibly.
Project strength to the world and his own people?
Right.
Like, look, I'm still the boss. I've still got powerful weapons.
Okay.
Don't underestimate me.
It's possible.
Yeah.
When leaders feel threatened, they often show off their power.
Right.
And talking about a weapon that can cause meteorite-like damage definitely does that.
Yeah.
It plays into those fears we talked about.
Totally. It's like he's trying to create this image of unstoppable force.
Right.
Like something from a movie.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of the Reddit comments are questioning whether this Oreshnik missile can really do that.
There's a lot of skepticism in there for sure.
Okay.
A lot of users point out that Russia hasn't exactly been successful in Ukraine.
Yeah, remember all those reports of tanks breaking down and
Oh, yeah.
supply lines being a mess?
Not exactly the image of a high-tech military.
Right. So are people right to be skeptical of this meteorite missile?
I think it's always smart to be cautious about claims about military tech.
Yeah.
Especially when they come from someone who wants to control the narrative.
Yeah.
Okay. We have to look at the evidence, the track record, and the motivation behind the talk.
So even if this Oreshnik missile is as powerful as Putin says, the big question is, would he actually use it?
Right.
And if so, why? What's he trying to achieve here?
Exactly.
Because the HuffPost article mentions Putin saying he's willing to negotiate a peace deal, but it's hard to imagine what that would even look like now.
Right, that's the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
What kind of peace deal could satisfy Putin after all that's happened?
Right.
All the death and destruction, the war crimes.
Yeah.
It's hard to see him walking away without consequences.
The Reddit thread really shows that global dilemma. Some people want a hard line.
Yeah.
They want Putin out of power and held accountable, but then others are worried that pushing him too far could make things even worse.
Right. Potentially even lead to a nuclear war.
It's a tough situation for world leaders to navigate.
It really is.
Yeah.
They're trying to figure out Putin's real intentions. And what the best course of action is, there are no easy answers.
No kidding. This whole deep dive is pretty scary.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that the threat of major conflict or even nuclear war is real.
It is. And it's important to remember that we're not just watching this happen.
Right.
We have a responsibility to stay informed.
Yeah.
To think critically and hold our leaders accountable. Our voices matter.
That's a good point. It's easy to feel helpless. But you're right, staying informed is key.
Exactly.
Speaking of staying informed, let's get back to Putin's comments about Trump.
Okay.
That's another part of this I'm still trying to understand.
Yeah.
The HuffPost article mentioned how Putin criticized the attacks on Trump's family during the election.
Right.
He even said, even common thugs don't do that here.
That's interesting.
It feels like a calculated statement.
It does. It's a subtle way to connect himself and Trump.
Yeah.
Make them both look like victims.
Uh-huh.
It's a way to align their interests.
Okay.
Maybe lay the groundwork for some kind of alliance.
So is Putin hoping that Trump will be more on his side once he's in office?
Possibly.
Maybe even lift some of the sanctions?
It's a gamble for sure.
Yeah.
Trump's foreign policy can be unpredictable.
Totally.
It's hard to say how he'll approach the Ukraine situation once he's president.
It's like we're all waiting to see what happens next in global politics.
We are.
Yeah.
And while we wait, it's crucial to pay attention to the details.
Yeah.
Analyze what's being said and try to understand the motivations of the people in power. Things are changing quickly.
Right.
And even small things, like this threat about a meteorite missile,
Yeah.
can have huge effects around the world.
That's pretty serious. This deep dive has really shown how connected everything is
It is.
and how something happening far away can affect our lives.
Absolutely.
We've got a lot to think about here, and I think it's worth looking at how this conflict is affecting everyday people,
Yeah.
both in Ukraine and globally. The Reddit thread has some interesting insights about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's easy to get lost in the, big picture, you know,
Right.
all the politics and weapons and stuff, and forget that there are actual people caught in the middle of this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Families being torn apart,
Yeah.
lives lost,
Tragedy.
people losing their homes, everything.
Huge human cost.
And that's why we can't oversimplify this.
Right.
Make it just good guys versus bad guys.
They're way more complicated than that.
Way more. And you see that in the Reddit discussion, too.
Uh-huh.
People debating everything.
Yeah.
Sanctions NATO, the whole history of the conflict.
It reminds us that there are so many different ways to see this.
Totally. So many different perspectives.
Exactly. And those viewpoints are important.
Yeah.
Even if we disagree with them,
Right.
it helps us understand the whole picture.
The complexities.
Yeah.
But ultimately, we want to find a way to end this peacefully, right?
Of course.
To stop the suffering and save lives.
That's the goal.
But how do we do that with someone like Putin who seems to want to make things worse?
That's the dilemma, isn't it?
Yeah.
Real leaders are trying to stop him,
Uh-huh.
but they also don't want to start something even more catastrophic.
It's like walking a tightrope.
It is a very delicate balance.
And speaking of waiting,
Yeah.
let's go back to Putin saying Russia's ready to negotiate.
Okay.
The HuffPost article quoted him saying he thinks Trump will find the solution to the war.
Interesting.
What do you think he means by that? What solution could he possibly be thinking of?
It's tough to say for sure, but
Yeah.
based on what we've seen from Putin before,
Uh-huh.
I doubt he's going to let Ukraine be truly independent.
So is this talk of a peace deal just a tactic, then?
It might be.
Another way to manipulate the situation?
Possibly buy himself some time,
Yeah.
maybe create problems between the countries that are supporting Ukraine.
But Putin's good at playing the long game,
He is.
and he'll do whatever it takes to win.
That's what we've seen.
So, okay, we've covered a lot today. What are the key takeaways from all this?
All right, well, first off,
Yeah.
this meteorite missile threat is serious.
Right.
Russia can cause major damage with this weapon.
Even if it's not nuclear.
Exactly.
And we have to remember that Putin has his own agenda. He wants to look strong, scare his enemies, and get a peace deal that works for him.
And the rest of the world is in a tough spot
Yeah.
trying to stand up to him
Uh-huh.
without making things even worse.
It's a difficult situation for everyone.
It is.
And most importantly, we can't forget about the people whose lives are at stake.
Of course not.
Any solution has to focus on peace
Absolutely.
and saving lives. That's what matters.
Couldn't agree more. This actually brings up an interesting question, though.
Okay.
We've talked about how Putin's saying this meteorite missile is like a nuke,
Yeah.
even though it's not.
Right.
Could this be a sign that he's actually getting desperate?
Oh, wow.
Maybe he's running out of other options. His military's stretched too thin.
Okay.
And this is his last chance to force everyone to do what he wants.
That's a pretty scary thought.
It is something to think about as this situation keeps developing.
And that's what we do here on the Deep Dive.
Right.
We take these big, complicated, scary topics
Mm-hmm.
and we break them down,
We explore different angles,
ask the tough questions.
and hopefully you learn something new.
Exactly. And we always want you to keep learning.
Of course.
Read more, talk about the stuff, and come to your own conclusions.
That's the goal.
Because learning should be fun,
It should be.
even when the topic is serious. So thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Thanks, everyone.
And we'll catch you next time for another one. Until then, stay curious.